Blue Archive, a gacha game that went relatively under the radar, at least in my opinion, despite having a large, active community, consistently high sales, and polish. I've played other gacha games, Arknights, Genshin Impact, Ni no Kuni, Azur Lane, Honkai, and more, and yet, in my opinion, Blue Archive is the game that focuses the most on the characters themselves. By this I mean, despite the gameplay, art style, and background music all being great, the characters themselves, their personality, live 2Ds, and stories are arguably their main selling point. Don't get me wrong, the meta and beauty of certain units is a primary focus due to it being the first method by which most individuals interact or see a unit after they join you, or even beforehand depending on the event. That's when the character's personality is shown to you. For me, the prime example of this is Izuna. I admittedly like foxes, so from a design standpoint, Izuna already appealed to me. However, once I pulled her, ranked up the relationship I had with her, and went through her story, she quickly became my favorite character, to the extent to where despite her not being the most meta mystic unit, I built her, and she is to this day my most heavily invested unit in this game, to an extent to where she has not left my home screen. She's consistently in the recollection lobby. To an even greater extent, Yoshimi is an example of this, alongside Serena, both to be discussed later on. Yoshimi is an example of a unit who originally didn't appeal to me. She's a low rank unit who ultimately I didn't care for until I had finished building the relationship up I had with my other students that I used on a day-to-day basis, and once I focused my attention on Yoshimi, once I focused my attention on her quests and her story, she quickly grew on me, to an extent to where even though I don't bring her on most of my missions, she's still one of the most memorable characters in the game, to me at least, and she's also in my recollection lobby. Then there's Serena. I adore Serena. Keep in mind she's not my favorite, Izuna still takes that spot, but Serena is a close second. She's supportive and really embodies the medic role, essentially always being there for your character throughout her story. She's pretty, her storyline is wholesome and wonderful, and she's such a useful unit, so there's nothing wasted when you choose to focus on building your relationship rank up with her as opposed to somebody else, because you will always need a healer. Now, don't get me wrong, despite the fact that I said all of that, the live 2Ds, admittedly, they are a big part of the appeal of this game and a big part of the appeal of certain units, and I would be lying if I said I didn't have my favorites. Izuna, Serena, Chise, Mashiro, Hibiki are all among them, and they each have different forms of appeal to me. Azuna is because, once again, she's my favorite unit. I like her personality and embodies the adorable appeal of that character, and it's always nice to open the game and see her. Even if the memory or recollection in of itself isn't active, the character will always greet you in a very happy manner, and that's really, really nice, because it's always nice to see your favorite character as the first thing you see when you log onto a game. Serena, because the colors are simply amazing. The pink and golden hues blend together wonderfully, and I wasn't honestly expecting it to have that much effort put into it, and it really surprised me. She said, due to the dark mix of blues, calm music, and general atmosphere, it's a very blue color scheme that fits her as a character, and it does fit the questline and story that you've gone through with that unit. Each have their own appeal, and none of them are bad, though obviously some have more effort than others. So it's pretty easy to look at the game from an outside perspective, see the live 2Ds and find one you personally like or admire, and it's pretty easy to look at a new unit and decide that you enjoy the live 2D and decide that you might want to roll onto it. But in my opinion, one thing that really is surprising is logging on, getting a character accidentally, or one that you maybe have had for a long period of time, building up that relationship and discovering that you actually like their personality. And it is fun because it does mean that you're not constantly chasing after a new unit or the new meta, because at a certain point you have the characters you want. For me, I got Azuna, I didn't need anybody else. Don't get me wrong, I wanted Koharu, I wanted Shiroko riding, I wanted Bunny Neru, and these are units that I intend to collect in the future. But as of now, I have the units I like, and ultimately that gives me the opportunity to focus more on the story of the game, the story of these characters, the side quests, and the story is a great focal point, and I want to make an entire video focusing on that in the future. This one's just meant to be characterization, because while the gameplay isn't on par or as involved as games like Genshin Impact, Tower of Fantasy, or other more open world gacha games, the limited scope of that means that, in my opinion, the characters have much more effort and development put into them than any other game. In Genshin, I like Raiden Shogun, I like Zhongli, I like Venti, I like Kokomi, I like other units, and sure, that's fine, but to me, when I'm playing those games, you have a certain units like Zhongli or characters like Venti who have a lot of effort put into them because of their role. But you also have other units, Jean, Mona, Ganyu. You have units like Kokomi or Kaching who have very similar personalities. All of them are overworked or broke, and that means that the characters themselves don't feel unique. Sure, the gameplay might. Jean as a unit would feel very different from Ganyu in Genshin, but the gameplay doesn't translate into personality. In Blue Archive, every character's personality shows through a bit more with their general skills, with their gameplay. You have Izuna who do ninja flips every time she can. Even in a cafe, she'll have little emotes and she'll wave at you, and she's a very fun, happy character. And her questline and storyline focuses on that, and it showcases that to you, and it translates really well through just the general movement of the unit. How she looks as a leader in your squad, how she does flips over vaults compared to every other unit, how she'll act in a cafe, how she'll jump up, or even make noise. She's a very fun unit who expresses herself in that gameplay design, and I really do enjoy that because you're not exactly using every character's skill every second, but even if you aren't, you are instead still visually seeing that on screen, even if they're just moving and you don't actively have a part to play yet. There's effort put into the characters of this game. There's effort put into every scene. Sure, the music is nice, it's upbeat, it's happy, the story is great, don't get me wrong, but when you're deciding if you should pull for a new unit, or even if you like a new unit, and for me, example is Izuna is a character who I pulled. I ranked up very quickly in. She's at the max relationship rank, and I still don't get increased story, or I don't get any new scenes with her. Instead, it's just a nice passive bonus to her attack, to her HP, whatever, and I've maxed her out. But even still, that doesn't necessarily mean there's nothing to do. In games like Genshin, I do feel like once you hit the max friendship rank with a unit, there's nothing more to them, because they don't express themselves to the combat. They don't express themselves to a lot of ways. You have a voice line that you have to go into a menu to hear. And sure, with Blue Archive, you have to individually activate a quest, but you get bonuses for doing it. The game entices you to do so. If in Genshin, when you ranked up your friendship, the character got a boost to maybe energy recharge or some specific stat, it would be useful. But Blue Archive actively encourages you to build relationships with these units, encourages you to get their life to Ds, encourages you to put investment not only into your team from a skill standpoint, from the student menu standpoint, but instead encourages you to actually spend time with these units. And that, in my opinion, is really valuable, because it means that the developers are enticed to put more effort into these units, to really have a good storyline for them, or to even just depict them in a nice way. Every character feels a bit more unique, and even if they have vague similarities, they're not exactly the same. They're not a copy-paste of each other. And that, in my opinion, makes Blue Archive worth playing. Characterization is strong, and I'd much rather have a strong character than one that just looks cool because they can. For me, I put less physical, real-life money into Blue Archive than I have into Genshin, and yet for that same thing, I feel like I've gotten more, or perhaps have learned more about the units that I enjoy in Blue Archive than I have at Genshin, because I have these units in Genshin that are static. They don't really change. They don't elaborate on the story. I can read them, but I get at most a couple paragraphs or even a page of paragraphs, and that's it. Sure, the lore happens, but I don't get to decide if I want to do a quest line. I don't get to unlock a new quest for that unit by reaching friendship rank 10. There's nothing I actively decide on with that unit. It's instead, a lot of it's just developer, however standpoint. Instead, in this instance in Blue Archive, you get events that feature these units. You get new versions of them, swimsuit versions, alternate outfit versions. You get them featured in other characters' quests, or them mentioned maybe. And that all helps you build up a connection, a stronger connection with this unit. So, I recommend playing Blue Archive if you haven't already. And if you have, I'm pretty sure you already know what I'm talking about. Either way, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like on the video down below. It does help out the channel. Consider subscribing, and hey, I hope to see you in the next one. I'll talk about Blue Archive's story next. Either way, goodbye.